What's going on, guys? B-Sky here with you, and on today's show, we got your wide receiver sit starts ahead of week 3. I'm going to go through every single matchup, talk about all the receivers, and all the tough matchups this week for your fantasy team. Hopefully you crush it. So keep it locked and loaded right here at the first 4 downs. What's going on, guys, and welcome back. As I mentioned in the preview, we're going over the wide receiver sit starts for week 3 of the fantasy season. So before we get to today's content, don't forget, like the video, subscribe, share, thumb bell, all that good stuff. Comment. If there's a receiver I didn't talk enough about or someone that you want to ask a question about, drop in the comment section. I'll be glad to get back to you. And I'll have all the timestamps for every single matchup. You can skip right to the players you want to hear about the most. So let's dive right into it. The first one we're going to be looking at, Carolina Panthers on the road against Houston Texans. No Tyrod Taylor. Brandon Cooks has been great through 2 weeks. Don't get me wrong. His target share was incredible. Last week, 14 of the 28. He got a huge target share. So are you going to be able to start him here against Davis Mills and a tough Carolina defense? I'm not so sure. Obviously, if you're taking a chance on him, it's a pure volume play here. I could see you starting on possible flex this week, but it might be tough. Carolina, I don't think they're going to be letting up anytime soon. They look great on defense. So Brandon Cooks, a possible sit for me. If you got to start him, hopefully he's just a flex type option. If you got better options, I would go elsewhere. On the flip side, Carolina Panthers, DJ Moore played outstanding, period. He's been good. He got a touchdown in the first 2 weeks already. On pace, 8 touchdowns, something like that. So obviously you're starting DJ Moore. Robbie Anderson, really boomer bust here. Hasn't looked great. Got the big touchdown week 1, but outside of that, he's not seen enough target share for me to like him here. I get it. It's a good matchup for him. If you need a dart throw and hope he gets a big play, Robbie Anderson's your guy. So possible flex opportunity here with Robbie Anderson. But DJ Moore, he's the guy you can trust in this offense. I think Christian McCaffrey is going to have a field day in this matchup, plain and simple. So you're starting DJ Moore, Brandon Cooks, low-end flex, and then DJ Moore, and then Robbie Anderson, you're taking a dart throw for that big touchdown. On to the next matchup, you got Indianapolis Colts on the road against Tennessee Titans. Is Carson Wentz going to play? That's the big question. If he doesn't, Jacob Eason. Can you trust any of the receivers on the Colts side of the ball? Michael Pittman coming off a great day, had over 100 yards receiving, but I don't know if necessarily you can trust him here if Eason's under center. 2 for 5, threw the interception late in that game. I don't know if he's ready. I get it. It's a great spot against a Tennessee defense that's absolutely terrible, so it's going to be tough for you, but I don't know if I can trust Michael Pittman here. So obviously, I'm not really looking to start these receivers. Michael Pittman, Zach Pascal, he does have 3 touchdowns, but I'm really not looking to start these receivers with Carson Wentz out, even though it's a great spot. Don't get me wrong. Maybe you take flyers on him in your flex if you have to. I understand. On the flip side, Tennessee Titans, you saw Julio Jones really step it up. Just missed the touchdown. I guess he stepped out of bounds. It was close, but anyway, had a great day. A.J. Brown still hasn't got it going yet. I think he's trying to knock a little rust off. Indianapolis Colts secondary has not looked great through 2 games so far. They are a good defense, but they haven't really put it together all the way in that secondary. Gave up 2 touchdowns, Cooper Kupp last week. So obviously, you're starting A.J. Brown. You're starting Julio Jones. Set it and forget it. The Atlanta Falcons on the road against the New York Giants. This is a game that sneakily could be a shootout, to be honest. Both these defenses are not very good. The Giants actually are better, but they're old. They're showing some holes there, especially in the secondary a little bit. You saw what happened with the Washington football team. So on the Atlanta side of the ball, you're starting Calvin Ridley. It's the one receiver you can trust in this offense. Coming off a game, he caught a touchdown finally. So that's good. He hasn't had that big boom day yet. Maybe it's coming this week. We'll have to wait and see, but you're starting Calvin Ridley if you drafted him as your wide receiver 1. So obviously, you're firing him up here. On the flip side, Sterling Shepard, you got to start him here. He's the safest play in that Giants receiving core for just pure volume. He's getting it done. Looks great while he's on the field, healthy. So you're going to be starting Sterling Shepard here against the Atlanta secondary that just got roasted by Tom Brady. I mean, once again, it's not looking good for Atlanta defense, period. So you're starting receivers against them. Sterling Shepard is a start. Kenny Golladay, Kenny G. I think they're going to really try and push him the ball. I know he showed a lot of frustration against Washington football team. You saw it on the sideline there, him jawing at Daniel Jones, So obviously he's showing a lot of frustration. This is a get-right game for Kenny Golladay. I really think he could have a decent day here. This is the time I would definitely be starting Kenny Golladay in a potential shootout, in a game, 48 over-under. I'm telling you, there's probably going to be some points here, both those secondaries. So start Kenny Golladay, start Sterling Shepard. Those are the 2 guys I trust. Obviously, Darius Slayton is a big play waiting to happen, but sometimes he drops it. And then you're starting Calvin Ridley. Those are the wide receivers you're starting in this matchup. LA Chargers on the road against Kansas City Chiefs. Mike Williams has played great. 22 targets in the first 2 weeks, over 80 yards and a touchdown both games. Looks like he's going to be finally what we expected Mike Williams to be for the last 3 years. We were hoping that he was going to be able to uptick over the years. I think the coaching staff really really held him back there a little bit. Justin Herbert really spread the ball around, especially deep last season with Guyton, other playmakers. So Mike Williams is your guy. Plain and simple, he looks great. He's healthy. Contract year, you got to have him in your lineup. Plain and simple, Kansas City Chiefs. The defense, albeit Tyrann Mathieu played great, had the pick 6 last week, but still, that secondary is nothing to be scared of. This is a high over-under. I think there could be a lot of points to be had. You're starting Mike Williams here. Same thing with Keenan Allen. Back-to-back weeks, over 100 yards receiving. Not seeing the touchdowns. I mean, Keenan Allen's never been that big touchdown producer anyway, but he's still being very effective in full PPR. 108 yards on 4 catches last week, so you're starting Keenan Allen. On the flip side, Kansas City. Tyreek Hill missing in week 2 against the Baltimore Ravens, albeit they did everything they could not to let Tyreek Hill get off. Okay, well then Byron Pringle and Demarcus Robinson, go ahead and beat us, and they pretty much did. They should have won the game, but anyway, Tyreek Hill's the one wide receiver I can trust in this offense, plain and simple on a weekly basis. Mecole Hardman, Demarcus Robinson, Byron Pringle, they're not guys that I feel comfortable trusting. Even in a potential shootout, Tyreek Hill's your man. Travis Kelce, I think these two guys, the offense runs through them. Those are the guys who are going to be starting in this offense. Cincinnati Bengals on the road against Pittsburgh Steelers. This is going to be a tough matchup. 43 over-under, something like that. Pretty low. The receivers I can trust. T. Higgins. He's a guy I can trust to potentially get some red zone targets. Plain and simple, you're hoping for a touchdown here. I think Burrow has not played great, but not been absolutely terrible. So through the first 2 weeks, and the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, it's actually ailing a little bit. You have to wait and see if J.J. Watt or T.J. Watt is going to be healthy and ready to play. The secondary had a couple key injuries. The key injury on the defensive line got a lineman put on IR. So that Steelers defense, once it starts to fall apart a little bit, they get pretty susceptible. So I like T. Higgins in this matchup. Obviously, Jamar Chase is a flex type option. He's a dart throw every week. Did come away once again with the touchdown, but he's not going to be necessarily the consistent guy. Tyler Boyd, if you want a low-end receiver that's going to get a lot of volume, this is your guy. This is the guy that you hope can get 6-7 receptions for 70, 80 yards. More than likely not going to find the end zone, but he could. He always could on any given day. So I like T. Higgins and then Jamar Chase as a low-end flex play, a dart throw touchdown guy, obviously. So on the flip side, Deontay Johnson, is he going to be healthy? This is the question mark. If he's not, obviously James Washington's going to be filling the lineup in 3 wide receiver sets, but I like Claypool probably to pick up some more targets. To be honest, Juju Smith-Schuster, he's going to fill the slot no matter what. He's going to see his, he's a low-end flex guy every single week. I think Chase Claypool, you could see an uptick if Deontay Johnson were to miss the game. So he's obviously a start for me. And if Deontay Johnson does play, you're probably starting him. You drafted him probably as your wide receiver too. So no problems with starting Deontay Johnson here. There's not going to be a huge point over-under. The Pittsburgh Steelers defense just doesn't look great, to be honest. The offensive line, Ben Roethlisberger's not playing very well. Najee Harris, they're struggling to run the football. So I'm not really sure. I think all 3 of these receivers for Pittsburgh, probably on the low end, RB2 or wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 range, just all flex options at this point. So obviously they're okay starts in probably a pretty tough matchup. Chicago Bears on the road against the Cleveland Browns. Allen Robinson is the only receiver I can trust. If Andy Dalton's under center, Justin Fields is under center. I can't really throw Darnell Mooney in just yet. I got to wait and see how that's going to shake out. Allen Robinson hasn't been great through the first 2 weeks, but he's a great receiver, and I think it'll be fine. They'll work him in just fine. Hopefully Justin Fields can play great against the tough Cleveland defense, albeit they haven't necessarily looked as dominating as I thought they would, but that's okay. They're still good. You're starting Allen Robinson here. On the flip side, Cleveland Browns, there's not a receiver healthy to trust, period. If Odell Beckham goes, is he going to be on a snap count? I don't know. Jarvis Landry placed on IR, so there's no receivers I can trust at all on the Cleveland Browns side of the ball. So obviously in this matchup, you're starting Allen Robinson, and that's about it. The Baltimore Ravens on the road against the Detroit Lions. Marquise Brown is the one receiver I trust in this matchup. He's been consistent through 2 weeks, got a touchdown in both weeks, seeing a decent target share, 10 targets last week. So obviously in a matchup where everyone pretty much projects Baltimore to steamroll Detroit, I don't think that defense is at all going to even slow down this Baltimore Ravens offense, plain and simple. So obviously they could get up big here. And I think Baltimore's defense is better than advertised. Obviously it hasn't looked great through the first 2 weeks, but they're still an above average defense. I don't think Detroit's going to be able to get off very many points on them. So I obviously like Marquise Brown here. Quintus Cephas, he made some plays. Caught a touchdown against Green Bay, but I still can't trust any wide receiver in this wide receiver core on a weekly basis. So obviously the offense runs through Hawkinson and the running backs. I can't trust any receivers for Detroit. Marquise Brown, he's a start for me this week. New Orleans Saints on the road against the New England Patriots. I don't like any receivers in this matchup. Plain and simple, Marquez Callaway. Just ain't getting it done yet. Going against a tough New England defense that really shut down the New York Jets. Played very well against the Miami Dolphins week 1. I don't like it because I can't trust the Saints at all right now. There's just too many question marks. And Jameis Winston doesn't look consistent at this moment. So I can't start any Saints wide receiver. On the flip side of the ball, yes, Sam Darnold had 300 yards, 2 touchdowns against the Saints defense. Is Mac Jones going to be able to put up numbers similar to that? Possibly. But I think this game's going to run through the running backs on both sides of the ball. I do think Mac Jones will probably have an okay day here. But any receivers, I don't know if I can trust them. You saw last week, the targets just weren't there. Plain and simple. Jacoby Myers, Nelson Aguilar. I mean, I think this game is going to be close. Don't get me wrong, both sides of the ball. But I don't like any receivers necessarily in this matchup. If you got to take a dart throw, Nelson Aguilar, potential touchdown on a big play. But that's about it. Jacoby Myers, we just haven't seen it get put together yet for him to have this large enough target share on being the possession receiver to see him a viable fantasy option. So in this matchup, there's not a receiver I really like or trust this week. Arizona Cardinals on the road against Jacksonville Jaguars. You're starting DeAndre Hopkins every week. We don't set it and forget it. It doesn't really matter. Rondale Moore, Christian Kirk. Both these guys are flyer type options. In my opinion, these are guys that you could plug right in, play against the Jacksonville defense that just isn't very good. So Rondale Moore, Christian Kirk, these are flyers, flex type guys that potentially could have big days here. Christian Kirk actually still came away with a little bit, did okay last week. Nothing crazy, obviously no 2 big touchdowns, but did better than I thought just based on the target share. Kyler Murray's looking great. The defense is not looking too good on a weekly basis. Obviously week 1 they really shut down the Tennessee Titans in last week. Gave up a lot to Minnesota Vikings. So we'll have to wait and see how that defense really shakes out on a weekly basis to be consistent. But it's Jacksonville. So obviously you're starting DeAndre Hopkins, Rondale Moore, Christian Kirk. These are flyer type options in the flex spot. On the other side of the ball, Jacksonville. There's no one I can trust here. Marvin Jones catch a touchdown last week. Week 1, it was DJ Chark. I can't trust a receiver in this offense. Trevor Lawrence coming off a game in which he had 118 passing yards, albeit it was against the Denver secondary that's really good. But still, I can't trust any receivers in this offense just yet going forward until I see some consistency. So you're starting the wide receivers on the Arizona Cardinals. You're sitting the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's what I would do this week. The Washington football team on the road against Buffalo Bills. Terry McLaurin must start every week. I thought he would have a tough day last week. I was close on him starting. Don't get me wrong, but you're probably starting studs like that every single week. You're just going to live and die by it. Look at Tyreek Hill last week. Let me down personally in 2 leagues. So you're going to start. You're going to fire him up every single week. It doesn't matter. So same thing with Terry McLaurin here. Going against the Buffalo, tough defense. Tre'Davious White, good cornerback. But you got to start Terry McLaurin just based on the volume, based on the upside and the potential of Terry McLaurin. You got to start him here. And the target share could be viable here in case they fall behind in this game. On the flip side, Stephon Diggs, surefire, set it and forget it. Has had 2 okay days, really hasn't had a breakout game yet. Josh Allen hasn't played up to par. And once again, the Washington football team defense is actually pretty good. So you're still starting Stephon Diggs and Terry McLaurin. I like Cole Beasley, low-end flex play here. I think just the pure volume of what Beasley brings is always a potential flex play. Emmanuel Sanders hasn't shown anything outstanding yet. Gabriel Davis, both these guys are really just dart throws, so I can't trust these guys against a tough defense. Diggs, and you're starting Terry McLaurin. These are the 2 receivers you can trust. New York Jets on the road against the Denver Broncos. I cannot trust a Jets receiver. You saw what they just did last week. The Denver secondary really shut down Trevor Lawrence, 118 passing yards. I don't like a Jets receiver this week. Corey Davis, I'm really worried about him going forward, considering Elijah Moore is playing a lot of his snap share is increasing. You got Jamison Crowder, he'll be back. Braxton Berrios, I want to say, led the team in targets last week. So obviously that offense is going to run through these guys. I still like Corey Davis, but it's going to be tough going forward considering the large, spread of the wide receiver position. So this week especially, I can't trust Corey Davis against the Denver Broncos secondary. I just can't do it. I can't trust Elijah Moore especially. Zach Wilson coming off a terrible game, 4 interceptions. So I'm not trusting a Jets wide receiver this week. On the flip side, Denver Broncos, Courtland Sutton, coming off an outstanding day. So Courtland Sutton's an absolute must start for me against the Jets secondary. That's not good. It is not. So you're starting Courtland Sutton and Tim Patrick. He's a flex type guy this week. They like to use him in the red zone. He's not a big play guy. He doesn't get a ton of catches, but he does get work in the red zone. So Tim Patrick, Courtland Sutton, these are the 2 wide receivers I can trust in the offense for the Denver Broncos. Miami Dolphins on the road against the Las Vegas Raiders. There's not many receivers I can trust in this matchup as well. Tua, who knows if he's going to be healthy and ready to play, dealing with the rib injury. Looks like rib cartilage. He could play through this. We'll have to wait and see what the pain tolerance is. If he's active, I do like Jalen Waddle. based on the volume. It's looking like he's getting the number one volume there. Will Fuller is MIA at the moment. Devontae Parker, who knows what's going to happen there. He's still doing okay considering. But Jalen Waddle, based on a volume play, is the guy that I would like to start on Miami in this matchup. That's the only receiver that I can really trust here. On the flip side, what receiver can you trust? Henry Ruggs, coming off a great game, had the big touchdown, but he could just disappear in a game in which you could see a lot run through Darren Waller. You can see Hunter Renfrow. He's been very active. And then on top of that, Bryan Edwards. So I don't know if I can trust a receiver here for the Las Vegas Raiders in an offense against a good secondary of the Miami Dolphins. So we'll have to wait and see another week. If you want to fire a guy, I get starting Henry Ruggs. You're hoping for that big play potential. If you got a tough matchup, you're going against the guy with the easy matchups. These are the type of plays where you gotta take a chance and hope for that big splash play. So I could see Henry Ruggs here as a flyer in your flex spot. Other than that, I can't really trust a receiver for the Las Vegas Raiders this week. Seattle Seahawks on the road against the Minnesota Vikings. You're starting DK, you're starting Tyler Lockett. Set and forget it every single week. Doesn't really matter the matchup, in my opinion. You got to start these guys. They're playing good. DK's actually not doing as much as you hoped, but is still being efficient enough. So obviously, you're starting DK, you're starting Tyler Lockett on a weekly basis. On the flip side, Minnesota Vikings, you're starting Thielen, 3 touchdowns. There's no way Thielen could have 10 plus touchdowns this year. That's what everybody said. No, it's impossible. He's still the red zone guy. He's still going to get the touchdown looks. He's got 3 through the first 2 weeks. So you're starting Adam Thielen here. You're also starting Justin Jefferson. You draft him as your wide receiver 1. He hasn't really exploded just yet, but he's still getting a decent amount of targets there. And you're going to be starting him. He got the touchdown last week. And then KJ Osborne, out of nowhere, wide receiver 3 on the Minnesota Vikings. Kirk Cousins really spreading the ball around this year with 3 receivers. So I like this. I like KJ Osborne in this matchup too as a possible flex guy. I think there's a lot of points to be had here. Could be a potential shootout. You've seen Ryan Tannehill, almost 350 passing yards, just missed on the Julio Jones touchdown. So obviously, I like Kirk Cousins in this matchup, a potential shootout here. I love all these receivers. All 5 of them should be in your starting lineups this week. Tampa Bay, Buccaneers on the road against the Los Angeles Rams. Honestly, this is going to be the game of the week. You're looking at a potential NFC championship game right here in front of our eyes. Honestly, 2 of the best teams in the NFC. So I'm excited. Plain and simple, the wide receivers are going to be starting Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown. Now, yes, you got to weather the expectations. They're playing the best secondary in the league, arguably. So you got to weather those expectations, but it's still Tom Brady. This game could honestly be lower scoring than you think. It's got a 55.5 over under. I really think it's going to be under. Potential field goal game. I think they're going to run the ball a decent amount here, but I still like these receivers. You can't really sit them. Any given week, they all could score. So obviously you're firing up these receivers. On the flip side, Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, the only 2 receivers you really can trust in this offense. Van Jefferson could make a big splash play here against the Tampa Bay secondary that hasn't played necessarily great. Been giving up a lot of points, even to Matt Ryan last week, 300 yards, 2 touchdowns. So Van Jefferson could be a real deep flyer option. The points over under high. They expect a lot of points here. If you got to take a real dart throw and you're in a deeper league, Van Jefferson could be your guy, but you can trust Robert Woods, you can trust Cooper Kupp for their production, and then obviously Tampa Bay, you're probably just firing them all 3 because there could be a lot of points, plain and simple. Green Bay Packers on the road against San Francisco 49ers. You're starting Devontae Adams every single week. Just set it and forget it. You don't even really got to talk about it. I worry about the offensive line for the Green Bay Packers, but you're going to be firing Devontae Adams on a weekly basis. On the flip side, Deebo Samuel. Now, if the running backs are still injured, they brought in a couple guys. We'll have to wait and see how that works out. I could see a lot more sweeps for Deebo Samuel, a couple more carries than they have been utilizing him with. They've been utilizing him downfield as a receiver, which is great. Deebo's an absolute playmaker. So Deebo Samuel's a must start on the San Francisco side. You can't trust Brandon Ayuk just yet. 1 catch on the season so far. There's no way you can trust a receiver on the San Francisco 49ers outside of Deebo Samuel at this moment. I think it could be a big game for George Kittle. So obviously you're starting Deebo, you're starting Devontae Adams. There's not a receiver other than that you can trust on the Green Bay Packers as well. So that's the receivers you're going to be starting, Deebo and Devontae Adams. Philadelphia on the road against the Dallas Cowboys. Devontae Smith, potential flex guy here. I get it. He's probably going to be seeing the tight coverage from Trayvon Diggs. He looks good. He helped Keenan Allen. Don't get me wrong, Keenan Allen still finished with 108 yards, but only 8 targets there, only caught 4 of them. So Trayvon Diggs is actually a pretty good corner. You got to worry if he's going to be on Devontae Smith here. Really could potentially shut him down. We'll have to wait and see. In my opinion, he's a low-end flex guy this week, Devontae Smith is. He didn't have a great day last week. He's still a rookie, so we'll have to wait and see. I like Jalen Reagor, little sleeper. Last week, had a touchdown and just barely stepped out of bounds. So I like Jalen Reagor this week. Potential shootout here between the Eagles and the Cowboys. He's a guy that honestly is a sleeper for me that could see the end zone this week at the wide receiver position on the Eagles. Quez Watkins hasn't seen a big enough target share for me to feel comfortable putting him in my lineups. So Jalen Reagor, sleeper. Devontae Smith, possible flex. On the flip side, Amari Cooper, is he going to be able to go? Dealing with the rib injury. I'm sure he'll play. We'll see how much target share he actually gets. You're starting CeeDee Lamb here. Obviously, the Slay, Amari Cooper, that's a tough matchup that you're going to be able to see. The cornerback, Darius Slay, versus Amari Cooper. So I don't know if you got to probably start Amari Cooper if he's healthy. If you're lucky enough to have deeper options, I could see sitting Cooper here. But obviously, you're starting Amari Cooper, you're starting CeeDee Lamb. Those are the two receivers that you really could trust. If Amari Cooper were to miss, Cedric Wilson is a name. You might be able to plug him into your lineup as a possible flex type option. If Amari Cooper was to miss, I really think they could run more through the tight ends if that was the case. But Cedric Wilson, also just throwing a name out there in case Cooper happens to miss the game. But those are the receivers you can trust in that matchup. So that's been every single matchup, all your wide receiver sit starts of every single game. If there's a receiver that I didn't mention, feel free to drop in the comment section. I'll be glad to give you my advice on it. So once again, like the video, subscribe, share, thumb, bell, and comment. Tell me how I did. Hopefully you love the video. If you haven't subscribed just yet, please hit the subscribe button. Anyway, so for the first 4 downs, it's been B. Scott, and I'm out.